say that. We'll give you thumbs up. 1 minute or so.
Hi, everyone. So it's always a pleasure to be at HCC in Paris. Thanks again for the invitation and the organization. So today we're going to present you a new product we are working on. It's called Confidential NFT, cNFT. And in this talk, we'll talk about personal data, Web3, how do we maintain ownership and confidentiality over our own data. So let's start. Today, the outline of the talk is the following. So first, I will introduce personal data and the issues with Web3. Then I will present the technology we are developing today, which is called cNFT, for confidential NFT. And we see that it's a full privacy-preserving solution. And next, I will give a short introduction, a short overview of a new product we are working on, which is called iExec Personal Data Wallet. And we will see that how people can actually use this, this new concept. Right, so Web3. So I will start with the definition that Gavin Wood gave a few years ago. So Web3 is a decentralized internet where users can control their own data, identity and destiny. And today we are going to focus really on how users can control their own data in this Web3 way of doing things. So with Web3, we say that users should allow to maintain ownership and privacy over their personal data, first thing. And then the next thing, which is super important, is that they should be able to decide who can use their personal data, and they should be able to control somehow how people are going to use it, what's the intended usage of their data. And basically, this is what we're going to solve. So first, we did a sort of survey of Web2 users. How do they feel now with respect to their personal data? And the result is probably unsurprising for you. First, we have discovered that users had kind of bad experience about the way a service like the GAFAM are handling their personal data. And typically, when they see targeted ads, they understand that somehow Google, Facebook have learned a lot about them, and they are kind of, forging them on internet for them. When we ask about, the use of their personal data and their feeling, the feeling were quite negative, actually. So you can see that people are aware of the problem. So, they mention a problem first. They are not satisfied. There are words such as displeasure. They feel that insecure, etc. So basically, we have to change that. We are building a system to address those issues. And really, what came up from this survey is that there is really a sense of being powerless. So people are really, they can't do anything with that. They are sending their data to Facebook. They understand that this is not so right, but they can't do anything. And why is that? It's because basically the Web 2 was about a very simple model, which is you give me your personal data and I offer you a service. So the question now is, how can we change that and what should we change? And if we say to people, no, you're going to have more control over your data, what does it mean for you? And this is the question we ask to users. And basically they say, controlling my data, it's having more information first. More information about who is doing what with my data, and having also more control. And so the problem we are solving, or we are trying to solve with this new product, is how can we help users to share their data when using applications while maintaining their ownerships and confidentiality over their data. So I will explain those words more in detail so just now. But first, we need to understand how Web3 is going to handle personal data. So with Web2, you understand everything is on the Facebook servers, and the model is very known. Basically, Facebook has everything. Here, obviously, it's going to be a little bit different. So here we distinguish between two different kinds of information. Those that are on-chain, so that could be typically your wallet address, that could be your ENS name, and those that are off-chain. What you will find off-chain, it's basically information or files. In these files, you can have information that are related to you, could be your name, address, phone number, email address, etc. You can have personal files that you need for accessing Web3 services. So imagine that in the future, some DeFi protocols are going to be regulated. They would probably ask for some KYC, but you can still do a kind of a decentralized KYC. Yeah, that's something possible. And of course, people will come with their own assets, so their own files that are going to share with their friends or to monetize. But what's important is that those files are not going to be on centralized servers, obviously. As remember the definition of Web3, these are going to be on decentralized. And of course, what is super important is that for all those off-chain files and information, we must maintain ownership and privacy. And that's even more important for Web3 than Web2, in the sense that here you can link personal information with the public information. And in the blockchain, you have all kinds of information, and in particular, the money people have, for instance. So that's super important to make those things really private. So understanding confidential NFT. So for us, you have files that are off-chain, and those files, information, are represented by an NFT contract on-chain. And what we call data ownership, it's when a user owns the data, owns the NFT, can use the data, can transfer the ownership of the data, and can transfer the ownership of the usage of its data. Confidentiality, it's obviously the fact that no one can spy on the data, unless they have been authorized. What's really important to understand is that to maintain confidentiality, you really need to understand who is going to use and the usage of the data. And in particular for us, what's important is to focus on the applications that use the data. If I just send a data to a friend, there is no way I can ensure that this data will remain confidential. So for us, the key point is that we have to represent the application, and the way data are used is always through an application. So what we call data usage, an application using the data as an input to produce computing result for a third party. And once you have all those things, the next step is to establish governance rules. So governance rules for user, for owner of a data, to express by some means how people are going to use this data, or applications are going to use the data, and the conditions. And the conditions can be access right, whitelist, blacklist, and eventually also monetization, so giving a price for using the data. So how does cNFT works? There are three main components for making a confidential NFT. The first one is obviously the file that can be stored on IPFS or any kind of remote storage. There is obviously also a smart contract, NFT smart contract, sorry, that represent this ownership. And obviously the file is encrypted, and so we need the third component that we call the secret management service, which stores the keys and which distribute the keys to the people, to the component authorized to access those keys. So how an application can use a confidential NFT. So let's say you have Alice that has personal information, and imagine an application such as a decentralized KYC system, for instance. So Alice will create a usage order that explicitly whitelists this application and publish this order on the iExec marketplace. And once that order has been published, then it means that the KYC application is authorized to access this personal data. For other cases, you can absolutely monetize your application, your data set, sorry. And in this case, you can also fix a price, and the user of this data would have to pay for using the data. So how does it work? I will not go too much into the details, but basically we're using end-to-end data privacy preserving. So it means that first, to protect the data, obviously they are encrypted and stored encrypted. And obviously when we transfer those data, they are also encrypted. So we've been doing that for 30 years, so there's no surprise here. When data are processed by an application, we rely on hardware enclaves, or Trusted Execution Environment, and more specifically IntelliJ enclave. So you may know this technology. It's basically a hardware feature that exists in the microprocessor, so that when doing a computation, no one can spy on the memory because the memory is always encrypted. So this thing is new. And of course, this is not enough. To maintain confidentiality, you must have governance. That's super important. So for that, we use the NFT smart contract on the blockchain and the governance rules. And we also have a component that we call the secret management service, which also run within an enclave. And this is the way we are sure that at no point in time, secrets are they're always encrypted. Okay. So this thing is running right now on iExec. It's been there for a year or two, something like that. And what I'm going now to present you is the prototype of the next product we are working on, which is called the Personal Data Wallet. And the goal with the Personal Data Wallet is to make all those features accessible to anyone. So the data wallet is basically a place where people will be able to store their personal information and protect. So on the one hand, they will be able to select partner dApps that can use their data. On the other hand, they will have a dashboard to control and monitor and understand what is being done with their data. So it looks like this. You have a dashboard, you have the list of confidential NFT that has been created, and you have a list of partner dApps. So for instance, I will give you an example of a personal information can create. So here in this case, we'll take the email address. So the user is very simple. The user will just fill the different information in the form, such as that's my email, the name of the cNFT, and the description. So once this is done, the cNFT is created. So it means that you have an NFT that has been minted on Ethereum, and you have a file that is encrypted somewhere on IPFS, and plus you have the keys that have been sent to the secret management service. Okay. And so what can you do with this cNFT? You can now link this cNFT to an application so that the application can use your confidential data, your personal information. So here you can see that we have a list of partner dApps. So you can imagine any kind of partner dApps. Here we have listed one that is private email sending. That sounds like interesting for an email address. The other one are less relevant. Obviously, you can have a token tracker. So you can imagine, for instance, DeFi services that will give you information about your wallet and your portfolio, but still you will be able to maintain the confidentiality about your information. So here you see that we have the private email sending. So this application allows you to receive email from third parties while avoiding to share your personal email address with them. So it means that when we're going to link our email to that application, people will be able to send us email, but they will never know what our actual email address is, and nobody will never know that. And that's really the point. So to do that, it's very simple. You have a presentation of the application and the permissions. And so obviously the application will access the email address, but as the email address and the application are executed within an enclave, nobody can extract this information, of course. And so if we authorize the connection, then it means that the two are linked, and now this private email application is authorized to access our email address. Okay, so as a conclusion, the goal of Web3 is to allow users to control their own data. We have presented two things today. One is the confidential NFT, which is already part of the iExec stack, and as a developer, you can already build your application on top of that. It's a full privacy preserving solution that relies on Ethereum and also on confidential computing. I think that there are very few developer stack that can manage that at the moment, so that can be interesting for developers. The future is the iExec data wallet. So this is something we are working on now, and that will be released probably by the end of the year. And using that, you can manage your own personal information and your computing assets. And the goal we have with this personal data wallet is also to allow people to monetize their data. So thank you, and maybe we have time for a couple of questions if you have some.
Any question?
Thank you. Is there any way for users to remove their personal data from IPFS storage in your system?
They can't remove the data, but what they can do is that you have a data, but no one can use it unless you publish an order. And that's the order once in the marketplace that allow people to access the data. So if you don't publish that order, no one can access the data. And this order, you can revoke it at any time. So removing the actual off-chain data, I think it clearly depends on the remote storage system you are using. If you are allowed to remove the data from that remote storage, then you can. If you are not allowed, like on IPFS, I don't know if you can, or then you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Hi. What would you say the biggest benefit of cNFTs over verifiable credentials would be?
About what?
The biggest benefit of cNFTs over using something like verifiable credentials?
I didn't understand the alternative. What was the alternative?
Sorry? The?
cNFT versus what?
Verifiable credentials.
Verified? Verified credentials?
Yeah.
Okay. So here, the idea is that you kind of produce a proxy between the one that are going to verify your credentials and you. So this is basically what we have shown with the email. If you have someone that that want to send you an email, and you don't immediately communicate the email address because you want to keep this information secret, and so you kind of create a proxy, which is an application that will be allowed to send you an email, but you don't have to reveal your email. So you can imagine this kind of proxy, and that could be extended to many different usages. So for instance, you could imagine connecting to a Web2 service while not revealing your credentials. but at the moment this is not something we have really worked on, but it could be a future work. I don't know if it answers your questions.
Thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.